Welcome, my name is Shelby. I run Shelbs Apparel, which is a small home embroidery business and also an educational resource here on YouTube and TikTok for other crafters. Today we're going to be kicking off our July series, which is Embroidery 101. I'm going to be taking you through 4 weeks of essential knowledge that you need to know to get embroidering. Today I'm going to walk you through the supplies that you absolutely need to get your first stitches running, and then a few extra that aren't necessary but will make your life a whole lot easier. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. I would love to walk through this embroidery journey with you, and hopefully you get something out of my videos. Before we start, I would like to mention that there are links below for everything I'm mentioning today. So the Amazon links are affiliate. I would love your support, and any of the other websites are not commissioned, so they are just purely there to help you out. Let's get into the video. Obviously, the first thing you're going to need is a machine. This is not your typical sewing machine or quilting machine, but some embroidery machines do have the ability to do those as well. Embroidery machines typically come in 2 forms. So a single needle, which is often a flat bed, and then a multi-needle, which has a totally different form to it. To make a long story short, single needles are often less pricey, but you do have to manually change each color as you're going along. They often run on a flat bed, which will limit the size of items that you can embroider and also what shape items you can embroider, such as ball caps, inside pockets, things like that. A multi-needle is considerably more money. They often take much more experience and practice to master, but in the long run, they definitely do a lot more. They have more capability when it comes to hats, larger items, and oddly shaped items that you need to get into a machine. You also don't have to change each color every time you want to switch. Overall, I recommend that you do start with a relatively inexpensive single needle machine. This will allow you to learn all about the process of embroidery, hooping, how different materials react to embroidery, and you'll get tons of practice before you're ready to step up to that more expensive machine. So I personally started with the Brother SE2000, and this machine has been incredible. Although I don't tend to use the sewing features on it, so I would have been okay going with Brother's PE series, which doesn't have a sewing feature. The other thing to keep in mind is if you can get a machine with a 5x7 hoop rather than a 4x4 hoop, you will have more capabilities and more options to embroider. Although a 4x4 hoop is totally fine and you can learn lots on it, it will limit you a little bit. Embroidery thread is so fun. The colors are endless. Let me talk you through different weights of threads and what you're going to need to look for. Then we'll go on into like brands and pricing and whatnot. So upper thread, which is the color that you'll see on top of the embroidery, is typically what comes in all these different arrays of colors, and it needs to be 40 weight. You can usually get these in 500, 1000, or even 5000 meter spools. For my single needle machine, I prefer the 1000 meter mini king cones because they're small, but they have enough yardage and they're easy to pop in and out of the machine. Now bobbin thread, which is the thread that you typically don't see, it's underneath the embroidery, is typically white or black, and it needs to be a 60 weight. So 60 weight is thinner than what your upper embroidery thread will be. This allows your embroidery to sit a lot more flat, and it allows you to get more onto the bobbin roll so you don't have to switch as much. I personally prefer to use pre-wound bobbins because the tension tends to be uniform throughout the entire bobbin, and you can get close to the very end of it without having to switch out. Whereas if you are wrapping your own bobbins, which is totally fine, you can do it, I find that the tension is a little more uneven, and as soon as you start getting close to the end, it's a lot more loose and you probably lose a lot of thread by having to change it prematurely. With bobbins though, just make sure that you're getting the size that is compatible with your specific machine. So for beginners, I would recommend just going with a cheaper brand and getting lots of different colors so that you can play around and not have to worry about messing up or using a bunch of expensive thread while you're learning and just messing around with things. You can get these big bundles off of Amazon, or sometimes you can get them in your local craft supply stores. As you get growing with embroidery, you may want to consider switching to higher quality thread brands, but at the speed that the single needle machines go, you shouldn't have to worry too much about breakage or shredding. And if it does break a time or two, you can just rethread it. I specifically started with a little bit higher end brand called Marathon Threads. They do have a location in Alberta that ships across Canada. I specifically started with the starter kit number 6, which comes with all of the colors that you can see behind me. This was around $250 for 50 rolls, and I am very impressed with the quality of Marathon. I highly recommend them. For cheaper thread, I do recommend starting with about a 50 color pack on Amazon. This gives you enough colors that you can play with, but not the crazy 250 packs. Then if you don't end up liking embroidery or the thread brand, you can always switch for a lower cost. You can usually find Sim Thread or New Bro Thread packs for around $1 or less per spool, which is a great deal. For pre-wound bobbins, I use the New Bro Thread brand. This came in a pack of 144 bobbins for around $40. Super cost effective and saves me time in winding my own. I'm very happy with these bobbins and I've never had any issues with the quality. Now, stabilizer is required for almost all of your embroidery projects. This prevents the fabric from stretching and shifting. If you didn't use it, your design would kind of be misaligned, distorted, and it would not be stitching where you want it to. Now, out of all the different kinds of stabilizer, the two most common are definitely cutaway and tearaway. We'll discuss the other kind of specialty stabilizers in an upcoming video this month, but let's just talk about those two for now. Cutaway is a thicker stabilizer. And you guessed it, it has to be cut away. This is mainly used on clothing materials. Tearaway stabilizer is lighter and it can be torn right off the back when you're finished. We typically use tearaway in thicker, less stretchy materials such as canvases, denim, felt, vinyls, or other thick materials like that. I'll be honest, I get the cheapest stabilizer I can find on Amazon. I've found no issues with the quality and no reason to spend any more than necessary. Make sure that you're looking at the price per yard to make sure you're getting the best deal. Usually the more yards you buy, the better deal you're getting. For both cutaway and tearaway, I use the brand New Bro Thread, and I get them in about 50 yard rolls. The last essential items you need, you probably already have in your house. A pair of scissors and a lighter. A good pair of scissors is needed to cut your stabilizer, your fabric, trim threads, and then cut away your stabilizer at the end. If you have a little bit more to invest, I suggest getting a tiny pair of craft scissors because they get into small spots a lot easier. When you're doing jump stitches and trims, it's very difficult to get them with a big pair of kitchen scissors. Some small embroidery scissors also have a curve to them, which makes it really easy to cut things out. I really enjoy this 2-pair pack of extra sharp little tiny scissors that I got on Amazon. They work great. All you need is your typical kind of lighter. You'll singe off loose threads. You'll make sure that you seal your beginning and end knots, and if any of your fabric has any frayed edges, you can go around the edge. Basting spray is one of my best friends when it comes to embroidery. I use this all the time when I'm using my single needle machine to float my fabric onto the hoop. I'll teach you more about floating in the hooping video, so stay tuned for that coming later this month. Basting spray can also be very useful when you have a very stretchy or slippery fabric. You can spray some on the back of your fabric and adhere it straight to your stabilizer so that the fabric doesn't move or shift or even stretch inside your hoop. It gives it the extra stability that the fabric doesn't have. Now, basting spray can be very expensive, so I try to use it as sparingly as possible. I usually use the spray and bond kind and have found it for around $30 on Amazon, but I've also heard of fellow embroiderers using the ODIF 505 spray, and they say that that works well too. So whatever you can find, try and get a pretty good price even though it can be expensive. Pins can be extra handy to get some extra stabilization in your fabrics. Whether you're floating or hooping, you can often get a more stable area. Simple sewing pins are perfect for this kind of job. You want the smallest head possible so that, say, like a large flower head or something like that might get in the way of your embroidery needle. I buy my pins in large bulk quantities. I don't worry too much about the quality of them. I'll get a large pack of, say, 500 on Amazon, and then if I end up bending one, then I can just toss it and go on to the next. I'll link a pack of 500 for under $10 in the description. Now, T-pins are really handy when it comes to preventing your fabric from slipping through the two sides of the hoop. The corners of your hoop are going to be the most stable, and then the long edges are going to be the least stable. So if you put a little T-pin on both sides, the fabric will have a harder time slipping through those edges. The ones that I use from meringue are super thick and sturdy, and I've never broken one. I don't think I'll have to replace these anytime soon. Topper is used for fabrics such as knits that tend to pull the thread down into the grooves of the material. So by using a topper, the thread can't sink in and you get a much more crisp, clean design on top. If you plan on making a lot of sweatshirts, t-shirts, or other knit fabrics, you'll probably want to consider a topper to make them stand out as much as possible. The water-soluble topper rips away super easy after you're done your design, and then if there's any little pieces stuck, a little bit of water mist will get them right out. I use the Super Punch brand, which is made in North America. They come in large yard rolls, but New Bro Thread also has a embroidery topping film. If you're wanting to do larger or smaller designs than the provided 4x4 or 5x7 hoop that comes with your machine, you can purchase additional sizes that are compatible with your specific machine. The smaller hoops make for easier left chest logos, sleeve embroidery, and other small little projects, while the larger hoops such as a repositional 5x12 are good for, say, a large chest sweater logo or a blanket or something like that. The repositional 5x12 hoop will allow you to split your design into separate areas and embroider them at separate times. Extra hoops come in handy when you're doing multiple items at the same time. So while one hoop is in the machine running, you're at the next hoop getting it ready to go. This works great if you want to start taking orders or making multiple gifts for people and you need to keep the machine running as smoothly as possible. I personally purchased 2 packs of the 4 set hoops from New Bro Thread on Amazon, and this way I have 2 hoops of every size plus the 5x7 that came with my machine. Target stickers are a nice little bonus when it comes to hooping and aligning your design. They have a cross stitch, so you know exactly how to straighten your piece in the hoop, and they peel off very easily, leaving no residue or marks. Dime has a great little roll that will pull out of your Target stickers, and you can get them directly from Dime's website. If you want more reassurance than just the Target sticker, a lot of people like getting a water-soluble marker or chalk marker to do full lines or extra markings on their piece. If I'm centering a design on a sweatshirt, I'll make sure that I mark the middle and I mark where the design should end on the start and finish. That way when it's in my hoop, I can trace it and make sure that it's going to stitch in that exact area so that it's centered in the sweatshirt. I always use the light blue, but they come in other colors in case that's not showing up on your fabric. Alright, so I hope that video gave you an exact idea of what you need to get your first stitches running on the machine, and another little few ideas to make it run a little smoother. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and it would be a huge deal to me if you could like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Let me know if you've learned anything new, and if you have, maybe turn on the notifications so you know when the next video is going to come out. So my question for you today in the comments is, what are the first few things you purchased to start embroidery? Or if you are starting, what are the first couple things that you are going to purchase? Until next time, bye friends!